The Honda CR-V is the world's most sold SUV. Why is that the case? Here also in the new generation that is now available everywhere. Here on Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars, we're going to examine exterior, interior and the driving experience in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! The new front here has been updated, so it's rather an evolution. It's not completely different, but it looks a little bit sportier. However, Honda is not in the game for the sportiest design whatsoever with their SUVs. They rather still make those friendly faces and also with a lot of round shapes. They also have some comp style details right there in the front grille, and as a contrast, this grey front bumper also fits the color very well. And you can see the daytime running light and LED right here, but also the main headlamp unit is standard equipment with LED. Others make it optional, they put directly in like that. The length of 4,58 m, 15 foot or 180 inches brings us to the side profile of this vehicle, where this interesting metallic color shines once again. The rims, by the way, start with 17-inch. Those ones here are 18-inch. Optional, there's also 19 available. However, I think 18-inch is a good choice. They also look visually attractive already in that size, but still the riding comfort is quite good. More to that when we drive the car. And I would really not go for the 19-inch rims. I'll tell you in the driving part why. Then the mirror caps are also here in the vehicle color, chrome frames, that also makes it elegant. And you can see here this rear end part, this has a coupe-like frame. So overall a little bit more elegant than the predecessor generation. And it has also become just a little bit longer than before. We'll see how that one plays out then for the interior. So it's 6 centimeters longer than the predecessor in length, but also gained 4 centimeters in ground clearance. It's pretty seldom that the vehicles increase their off-road capabilities over the generations, now at 20 centimeters ground clearance. In the rear we can see that those tail lamps are quite sculptural, so they're 3D alike. They really stand out even from the side profile already. And this form here, where have we seen that too? Yeah, at Volvo with their SUVs, but we can surely argue who came first here. And real exhaust pipes in the lower part, again with a grey contrast right here. I think that really works very well, especially with that color. Again, also the rear, especially this one here, more modern than the predecessor generation. I think overall it's, a very good design step forward. What do you think? So the main engine for the Honda CR-V in this new generation is a 1.5 liter turbo petrol with 170 horsepower in the manual hand drive version with front wheel drive or all-wheel drive, or 190 horsepower as we see it here with all-wheel drive and CVT automatic combination. So it's a front wheel drive platform and then plus rear wheel drive on demand. That's how the all-wheel drive here works. And they had some engine problems here with oil mixing with the petrol, especially for the 270 and 218 models in US and China predominantly. They say Europe would not be affected and also newer model years would not be affected, and they also promised to repair, to upgrade all of the existing engines. You should contact your Honda dealer for that if you have already one of those. And then there is also the 2-liter hybrid, looking forward to drive that. And there's also a 2.4-liter naturally aspirated engine with 190 horsepower, also supposed to be for US and Russia, but I haven't seen it on the US configurator. Not exactly sure if they want to concentrate on the 1.5 there too. Let's take a look at the interior together. This wood style inserts here, I really like them, and they're a good contrast with this bright style to the rest of the dark style. So I think this is a good job in doing it not so expensive, but already creating a nice look and feel. Then those fabric seats here, they are the base seats, and I mean, really marvelous base seats. Look at the support also at the sides and the wide seating areas. The fabric is not too sticky, it's the right mixture they have there. It keeps cool in summer and also warm in winter. And also an interesting detail, look at how the fabric goes all the way in a round style in the front, all the way to the lowest part, and that's really cozy also when getting in and out and also while driving. So I think they've done a great job here. And the steering wheel also been updated, and you might think, hey, wait a minute, it looks a little bit like the Honda Civic, and indeed those cars here, the Civic and the CR-V, they share the same platform. The door closing sound is actually quite decent, the last part, but what they don't manage is here when you pull the handle and it snatches back. That really sounds like everything, you know, is just a hole on the inside. You know, it's maybe nitpicking, but that's where they could also deliver you a more premium experience if they like to develop such a part. Interesting also how the door sill in the lower part is really, you know, drawn all the way to the lower part, and then there's a rubber lip to prevent something from coming from the outside to the inside. Then hopefully also in the car wash the inside of the chassis here will still clean. Let's get inside. This is the maximum the front door opens, but still easy entry. You have somewhat not the highest SUV seating position in here, somewhat crossover alike, but it's not bad at all. You sit still quite upright on the seat, and the comfort is really superb, not only due to this good fabric surface, but also the seat form itself. So I think they have done a great job in there. Also completely redesigned the seats, and they put the manual seats here for, you know, they can do the pump it up, y'all. And kudos to Honda, by the way. Here, just to finish this one up, this is here the lever then to change the angle of the back part. Kudos to Honda, because they put us here a middle trim vehicle, and most of the other manufacturers, they always present top high trim spec test vehicles for the journalists. Honda also dares to go for the mid-trim spec, and I think it's a good choice. First of all, not everyone wants to spend so much money. This is here a very realistic car people would buy that way. And I can also tell you already right now, I would recommend you to buy this vehicle exactly the way it is here right now to get a very good price performance deal. And well, one thing there will be, I would still pick as an option. I will soon tell you what it is. But other than that, I would go for that in that way. It's not the cheapest one, but it's also not the most expensive one. And I think that's also very important, that you get the best price performance ratio. Therefore, here on Autogefühl, we always tell you what is standard and what is option. It might vary, of course, always from market to market, but we also try to cover that as good as possible. My height is 1.86 m or 6'1". And that leaves still a lot of headroom. I even have the seat a little bit up, so you know, the pelvis is a little bit more upright, but still plenty of headroom available. This one here without the panoramic roof even leaves more headroom, so that's really good. Then the steering wheel can be controlled in height and also in reach. Smooth function. So overall, really satisfied with the seating position and the setup they have here. And it doesn't always have to be the electric seats. Well, this is just good when you have those memory functions when you're using it with a couple of drivers. Other than that, the manual will also do just fine. Interesting detail, by the way, here with the middle console, you see they have a soft pad here to protect your knees. That's a great idea. However, it only works with, let's say, not that long or tall legs, because then when your legs are taller, it will just hit the edge there and not the soft pad. So very well thought out and works for smaller drivers, but not the best for tall drivers. But I would like to see some more of ideas like that soon, because that's actually the part you hurt your knees most when driving. Well, especially on the racetrack, but that won't happen here, I guess. Inside of the door here, soft touch on the top part. It's a leatherette basically, so also well done. Here we go with the interior overview. You can still have this mute button right here. This is the only real button on the screen left. This is the optional setup, the top setup here for the infotainment, but probably most will go for that then. Then you have two 7-inch screens, left side for the digital instruments, right side then for this infotainment system. Soon more deals to both screens. The top part here, by the way, is a little soft touch. You can see the whole interior comes a little bit towards you. You know, that is reducing the space a little bit, but to the sides, you have really abundance of space. Here again with this nice wood style invert and then some leatherette style for the rest of the dashboard. The automatic shifting lever can be accessed quite easily. This one here, the CVT automatic transmission. I'll tell you more about it when we drive the vehicle. And you still have physical temperature knobs. I really like that. That makes it so easy to control it while driving, for example. Left side, coolant temperature, right side, fuel meter, and the middle part is the digital instruments. We can see the RPMs, but also digital speed. It's kept quite simple, but I think it's also good. You have a good overview. Now to the main infotainment screen. The GPS could be a little bit more responsive. See, it's not reacting too fast, but you can zoom in and out like on the smartphone. That comes handy. And you can connect your phone via Bluetooth, but also with Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. And then you have it right here. It's, by the way, also good for the voice activation. If you use that and hold the voice button at the steering wheel, it activates Siri. The normal voice activation from the car is not really that helpful because it doesn't have a free structure for free speech. You have to then use this one, say climate control, then you get to the next menu and just forget it. Hold the button and use it for Siri, or just use the normal commands. But since you can control this car very easily in the other ways, it makes more sense. And for the display here, you can easily access the brightness, by the way. So when it's too bright, maybe at night or so, it's also an easy way to change that quite quickly. And that's the rear view camera. It has actually now a little bit better resolution, so that's quite okay. It's not the most fancy one, but it surely does the job. And by the way, you can see here, the lines also adjust a little bit when you turn the steering wheel, so you know where you actually going to. Well, they're the masters of space, but the door pockets are quite slim, I have to say. There's a lot of room in the middle lower console, 12-volt power supply, then adaptive cup holders, then really a lot of space here under the armrest. You can move it up and it's actually quite well attached. Could be a little bit more fixed, but I think it's still okay. And then this middle part there, you can either move it like this, forward or backward, or completely remove it at all. That's also possible. And then even more space below that. And then there are USB supplies, one to connect the smartphone for the mirroring and one just to recharge the phone. Let's get to the rear bench, which is so important for this vehicle. And what? Look at that! 90-degree opening. We hardly see that with any other vehicle. That's awesome. Really cool. And by the way, the inside of the door here, this is hard pack material, whereas in the front there's soft pack material. I think we can live with that here. But then, of course, the rest here is inside soft fabric, so that's also cool. That's what the vehicle is for. 5 centimeter increase in legroom in this new generation if you compare it to the predecessor. And overall, this is really awesome. I will soon show you with the trunk. This strategy of this vehicle is to offer the maximum of legroom available, not the maximum of trunk length. You can flip the seats then, I will soon show you that. But we can clearly see the emphasis is here on the maximum amount of legroom that you can easily go with 4 or even 5 adults. That's really awesome. And of course the kids always have a lot of space then. And it's so great for everyone with children to get in here, install the child seats on the Isofix, on the outside of the seats each. And then you can have this wide opening of the rear door, can easily, access the child seat. Here have a lot of room still left, and then still someone can sit in the front. That's totally easy. So That's again the reason why so many people with children go for the CR-V. Then in the middle part here, got some cup holders, and you can also flip the seats from here, and then you can see that the rear bench here moves down a little bit alongside with that, and that will play a role of getting it folded flat from the trunk. And you can also adjust the angle a little bit. At the moment it's put all the way back like this, and then you have a more sleeping position, but you can also make it a little bit more upright. Then you can sit more, be more present, sit more upright. I think that's also good to have this flexibility for sure. And the headroom is also, is there in abundance even in the rear. And 2 more USB supplies that you can also charge your smartphones here. And last but not least, there's hardly any middle tunnel. So this is primarily a front-wheel driven system, but even if you have here in the all-wheel drive version, you can still sit here if your feet are not too long, but there's no big middle tunnel. That's good. Of course, the middle seat is a little bit stiffer, but you can still sit here as an adult for, shorter trips or something. We have the manual hatch here today. However, there's also an electric one available, and then you can also get this foot kick opening mechanism if you like. I sometimes even prefer the manual hatches. Well, if you like carrying a lot of stuff and you have some mechanisms to open it, that's of course handy. But then again, if you stuff some things in here, or if you stuff stuff, or maybe I transport my mountain bike in here, and then I gently want to close it again, see, oh, does it really fit, and I don't want to damage anything, then the manual one can be better. Or what do you think? And if we then look inside, wow! First of all, a very low loading sill, so easy to put stuff in and out, and it's even then a full replacement tire underneath. They have used this room so well. Look at how wide it is here. Wow! This cover here, by the way, it can be stuffed like this, that it's upright, then it's, let's say, a little bit sticky here, and wobbly here. It doesn't have rails on the side, like this, or you just let it hang down. It's also possible, or fold it up like this. Well, then let's take some measurements with Professor Thomas here. It's a little bit less than 1 meter in length, so the trunk length is not the biggest strength yet. Then here, this is about 1 meter in width, and if you go in front of those wheel arches, that's then over 1.20 meters in width. Very interesting. And what's even cooler, you can flip the seats from here with those very practical handles like this. And well, it would also be possible from the side, from the from the rear seats, but you can see, and they really come down all the way. And I don't have to go here, you can push this one flat, and this one goes really very, very flat, the whole area. Unfortunately, we cannot fold the co-driver seat all the way down, but already here we now get, this is about 180 meters, and if I put it up the armrest, then of course we get even more than 2 meters in length. And look at that, that's also one of the main reasons my neighbor has this vehicle. He has 2 kids. Welcome to Thomas's driving lounge with the Honda CR-V in this current generation now. Driving the 1.5 liter turbo engine, 190 horsepower, and the CVT automatic transmission. I'm going for a short trip, mid-speed on motorway, then we'll also have some city driving, and then there will be more motorway and some countryside, so all conditions you might face. Well, except for off-road. But as I said earlier, even this one here got a little bit better in the off-road situations due to increased ground clearance. So the sound insulation was something where Honda wasn't best at, and it's not the best now. I think it's a little bit better than before, but you feel that it's not super silent here. I'm driving just about 100 kilometers or 60 miles an hour, And it's somewhat okay, but it's not that I would say it's super silent in here. The first driving characteristic you feel or experience is the thing that I mentioned in the interior part, that the whole console, the cockpit area here, really comes far towards you. That's in contrast to the otherwise very open and spacious feeling you have here, that also influences your driving too. The overview is superb, so a great view through the mirrors. Also to the rear I can see so much, and in times where a lot of cars are designed in a way that you cannot look from the inside to the outside anymore, this is really a refreshing experience. I mean, you can even very well see the rear window there, so you don't have too much block from the B pillar. So great overview have you here, although it's not the smallest car, however it's also not the biggest one. But this good overview really helps you to get along with it very well. The engine is actually quite silent, and especially in combination with the CVT, it tends to give you a very calm feel. And the CVT also somehow educates you to drive in a calm way, because those continuously variable transmissions, they are not really that sporty. I will soon show you another acceleration with that, what I mean. And so they are not really fun when you really hammer the throttle. So you rather keep it a little bit steady. And then they're actually quite smooth, and there is no real transition, because there are no classic gears like with a sequential automatic gearbox or some things. So especially for cruising and for being in the city, it's actually quite nice to have that one. And we talked about the problems for the 217 and 218 models for this engine earlier. Now today here our impressions with the 290 models, where Honda has promised to have fixed all the problems that occurred before. And it's indeed quite uncommon, because the Honda vehicles are, known as very reliable. So everyone was quite surprised when they had the problems here with the new turbo engine. But I really hope they fixed it. Now we'll see on long-term run. But I mean, sound and performance-wise, so far it's actually quite good. The acceleration figure to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour is about 10 seconds. We'll also experience that soon again. First of all, some city traffic here. Suspension-wise, it is also rather soft and set for a comfortable ride. But however, when I feel those small bumps in the road, those are not evened out too well. That's also something which the predecessor had, and I thought they would have improved that a little bit. But that's also something where they're not that strong in with the suspension setup. As for the steering, it feels very light. That has the primary purpose to make it easy to park in and out. It doesn't give you the most natural feeling, but it doesn't have a total dead zone or something. At least something is happening also in those minor areas. Overall, I think something you can really live with. And also found it quite cool that we have so upright structures also at the inside of the interior here at the sides, that again accounts for the spacious feeling. So you overall get a calm and spacious travel feeling when being in this SUV. And again, this proves one of my points, that this is not one of the biggest ones. It's not full size, but it delivers you a lot of room, as we've shown you in the interior part. So you don't have to go all the way big on the exterior, and still can drive something where you can maneuver it through narrow situations or also inside a city. That still works. You don't get the highest SUV feeling in the CR-V, however. If some SUVs, they really have put an emphasis on the feel of a high SUV seating position, and some rather go in a crossover direction. This is still an SUV for me here, but doesn't have the highest setup here, so it's something, you know, has a touch of a crossover for sure. Now at this speed, about 70 kilometers by the way, it is actually quite calm. 70 kilometers an hour by the way at 1,500 RPM. I'll soon go to 100 kilometers or about 60 miles again soon, and then give you the RPM figure once more. You guys requested that. And I'll soon also talk about the fuel consumption right here. Well, the car feels quite cozy and stable actually. So it is a really good cruiser, and especially, of course, a family cruiser, since you can put so much in this vehicle. And again, it's so unpretentious. That's what I really like about this vehicle. It doesn't you know, try to be something else what it really isn't. And it's actually quite easy and quick to learn. So as for the driving modes, you do have this Econ mode. That one is reducing the throttle input a little bit. Helps you to let the car roll and stuff, also with the gear changes and stuff, so you can save a little bit more fuel. And on the other side you have the S mode. Maybe you heard that goes a gear lower, maybe for the acceleration. Let's go, 70 to 100. That was already it. That was almost 110. So that still was quite okay, and you know, it wasn't too bad for the CVT automatic. So we had some older CVT automatics which really went like, and it was, you know, quite painful to hear. But this one was actually quite okay, or what do you think? So now in the S mode again, higher RPMs, stays in gear lower. As soon as I put it in the D mode again, the car shifts in gear up. And now, for example, we are at 100 kilometers an hour or 60 miles, and we're just right below 2000 RPM. There is, by the way, also the adaptive cruise control. The autonomous emergency brake is standard equipment. The ACC, it always depends on the countries, but there are some countries where it's even standard equipment. You always have to check out the trim level as well. Blind spot monitor is not standard. We also do not have that here on that vehicle here. However, here now with the adaptive cruise control, I have set it at the moment. You can also change the distance here at the steering wheel to the car in front of you. And so far it seems quite reliable too. Lane change now here at higher speed. Car remains quite stable. So I found that I think they stiffened up the suspension even a little bit in comparison to the predecessor. It's not less comfortable than the predecessor, but definitely gives you more stability also at higher speeds. It is somewhat windy outside today, so it might be a little bit calmer when it's less windy. I would say the sound insulation is really okay, but not superb. Let's take it that way. Now I'm getting off the motorway to show you some more agile riding. It's actually it is fun to drive the car still. So although it for sure doesn't have the sportiest setup, it's still somewhat fun. And also good in comparison, since we recently had the Citroen C5 Aircross, which was not sporty at all, but also a very good ride. So here now in the roundabout, gives me actually quite good feeling for the car. Yeah, so this was a little bit more fun to drive than the Citroen C5 Aircross for sure. When you're driving it a little bit faster, you feel that they share parts with the Civic for sure. Because the Civic as a compact vehicle, which is almost mid-size as for the size, then Civic is so much fun to drive already in not super sports versions, and they could transport a little bit of that also here to the new CR-V. So yes, fun to drive. The CVT is surprisingly good. So I had some experience where the CVT was like mediocre, but Really, the engine keeps very silent. Due to the turbo, you also don't have to rush it so much into the high RPM areas. So you can also keep it, let's say, steady and calm. That also helps again. Overall, I think, it's a good verdict. So the driving overall is good. Again, special positives to transmission and the engine. You still have enough power always, and you can really drive it very calmly. As for the engine, sound insulation could be a little bit better, I think, and when the bumps are in the road. So as soon, when the road is clear, so then it's just fine. But soon as you have some bumps, then the suspension does not do the best job. So those things should be improved. But overall, I think a very decent ride. So for lane change again. Yeah, it really gives me a good and controlled feeling of the car. And this somewhat crossover aspect of the vehicle, it's not too high. Of course, accounts maybe for a little bit more of driving fun in comparison to other SUVs. Still, it's not a super sporty setup, that's for sure. And again, this is not, it's not a disadvantage or something, because so many SUVs have been going in a very, very sporty direction where you ask yourself, okay, why do they put it on the SUV then anymore? But I think they overall found a nice setup here as well, as for the direction they're going in there. So now some countryside as well, where you can enjoy some views out of this panoramic windscreen in the front. This is also a good aspect for traveling with the family, for example. So then, even with kids in the back, they can still look out of the big front screen, for example. And of course, also out of those very upright rear windows. That's again pretty helpful. So then as a last remark, if you compare it to the predecessor, definitely feels a little bit more refined, especially engine-wise. A little bit more relaxed the car has become. Also a little bit better in the sound insulation. And of course, the biggest change is the interior redesign, where it also affects the driving feeling, that this car feels a little bit more elaborate now than before. But at the same time, as I said earlier, the main characteristic is just a unpretentious vehicle that is easy to understand, easy to drive, and easy to use. And that's, I think, also one of the big selling points, which makes it still the world's most selling SUV. Some might don't know, but that's actually the case. And now to our conclusion for today with the Honda CR-V. Well, as an evolution on the exterior, it's not too different at first sight, a little bit more modern for sure. On the interior, we have the upgraded infotainment system, better material quality, overall feels more refined, definitely, and a lot of room, even more than before. Yes, it's also a little bit bigger, but not that it would change the whole vehicle concept or something. And especially the rear bench is so well to use, and abundance of luggage space too. This is also what makes this car so strong. And I said a couple of times in the driving part, I think this car is unpretentious. What I mean by that? Well, in a way that it is easy to use. It's not suggesting, oh, super premium or stuff. You just use this car. And that's also what so many people appreciate about this very vehicle. By the way, I also wanted to talk about the fuel consumption. I want to wait a little bit more till I drove the vehicle a little bit longer, and we ended up with about 7 liters on 1 kilometers. That's about 34 mpg for US or 41 gallons in the UK, and I think that's really a very decent figure for this petrol engine. Well, we hope that the petrol engine problems will not continue. So far it looks good then for the 219 models, and the 217 to 18 models are being repaired, Honda says. Overall, I think it's a very decent package. It's not too low in the price. Looking at Europe, in the US, it's actually more affordable, that's for sure. But overall, I think they still have a great package for this vehicle, and I can really understand why this is one of the most popular ones. What do you think?